welcome back to BookTube with Kevi. This is going to be my most recent weekly wrap up. So the first book that I read was The Night Country by Melissa Albert, and I read this as part of my I seriously need to finish this challenge. This is the second book in the Hazelwood trilogy. So I read Hazelwood last year. It was a 5-star for me. Really loved it. And then I bought the second and third one so that I could continue the series, and I'm going to buddy read the third one with Liv from Endless Pages, which I'm really excited about. So I was looking forward to picking up this one, and it just wasn't it. So this is quite a letdown of a book, to be honest with you. I read most of it in the one sitting when I was on sprints on Ashley's channel, and it got to the point where I was like, right, you just need to get through it, like, just keep going a wee bit longer. I just wasn't really having a great time, but it was one of those ones where I knew I needed to finish it so I could go on to read the third. But it looks like the third is sort of separate for these two, and the third one's just like a series of fairy tales from this world, which I am both relieved and bummed about, because I would have probably DNF'd this. To be honest, I'm really not doing well with this DNF goal this year. I feel like every week I sit down and go, I would have DNF'd this if it wasn't da, and I just make an excuse. So I really need to get stricter with what I'm DNFing. But if I knew that the third one was sort of a step removed, I would have probably DNF'd this one and still just buddy read the third one with Love. The first one was basically about a fairy tale world, and our main character discovers that she is from that fairy tale world, and spoilers, she is in fact a story. In this one, their fairy tale world is non-existent. It doesn't exist anymore, and so all the fairy tale characters have been thrust into the real world, and it is about how they are all learning to cope with that, how they are learning to navigate a new society and a completely new place now that they don't have a home. A lot of them are really trying to discover who they are, and there's a bit of a murder mystery that happens as well, which is completely different for the first book. So I think I would have enjoyed this more if it was nothing to do with the first book. Like if Melissa Albert wrote another book that was just a standalone and that was the premise, I'd probably read the shit out of that book. Like, I've played Wolf Among Us, so I am grand for fairy tale creatures in the real world with murder mysteries. That is the entire premise of that game. So like, cool, here for it, really like the concept. But the fact that she decided to string this to the Hazelwood and try and make them correspond was a wee bit of a letdown, because I felt like this book was completely different for the first. The tone had shifted, the writing had shifted, you know, we didn't get to spend a great deal of time with the characters from the first book. In this second one, there wasn't a great amount of character development happening. It was just sort of a plot point, but with new characters that we didn't really care about, and with no tension having been built, because most of the tension was resolved in the first book. So it was a bit lacklustre. I ended up rating this one a 2-star, and it's quite a fall from the 5-star that Hazelwood got. It was quite disappointing, I'm not going to lie, but I'm looking forward to the third one, because like I say, if it's just going to be these wee fairy tales from this other world, then that could be really cool, because that's something that I really enjoyed about the first book that we sort of feel lost in this book as well. In the first book we would get a couple of chapters, and then there would be like a fairy tale story, couple of chapters, fairy tale story, and it was really done interestingly, and it made it feel really magical. And I think that that's what this second book was missing a lot of for me, was the magic that the first book had managed to create. Now, I am a huge fan of urban fantasy, magical realism. I prefer like my fantasy worlds to be fantasy, so maybe that had something to do with it as well, as I feel like the tone definitely shifted with this one, and it was sort of in a different realm to the first book. because the first one we start off in real world, but then we go away to this magical realm where it is quite fantasy focused, and in this one we're cast out of that and we're back in the real world, which is never my favourite. So if we go back to maybe like a pure fantasy driven fairy tale story, I think that could be up my street, so I'm still excited for the third one. Sorry love, don't hate me. I then read Chicago Beauty by Kevi from Say Kevi. So this is a short story. I believe it's going to be the first short story in a collection. And we follow our main character Wilhelmina, who is a fat, disabled trans lady, and also her assistant Patrick. Well, the both of them just kick ass, fight crime, take names, orange Chicago. Now this isn't something that I would ordinarily pick up, I know. Basically anything that has the word detective on it gives me the ick, and I'm just like, oh, nah, no for me. But I picked this up just because it was Kevi that had written it, and I really enjoy Kevi's sense of humour, and I thought that there would maybe be a lot of that channelled into the book, and thankfully there was. So I had a great time with this story. I thought it was really delightful, if I can call it that. It was really funny, and I really enjoyed the social commentary. I felt like it was very relevant, and it was such a quick read as well. You could definitely read it in one sitting. I'm one of these people that I don't really like a huge big long short story, because it's supposed to be a short story and I can't finish halfway through a short story. Like, I have to read it in one sitting, and this was just the perfect length for me, which I thoroughly enjoyed. This read to me a lot more like cosy mystery with a side of humour than it did a serious detective story, which I was immensely grateful for, because that is so much more up my street, and I'm really thoroughly pleased I enjoyed it. I actually messaged Kevi after I had read it to say, look, listen, I know this isn't usually something I would pick up, but I read it because it's you. Really enjoyed it, and I felt like it had those cosy mystery vibes, and she says that that was what she was aiming for when she was writing it as well, so I'm really pleased with that. And I rated this a 5-star. I had a really good time with it. It was just a really fun, easy wee story to follow. It did have me really belly laughing at points, because obviously knowing Kevi, there were just some things that were written in the novel that I could just like hear Kevi saying it. And I think it's really good that her voice comes through so strongly in her writing. That is a credit to her. So I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I would happily read more when more, if more, comes out. Then lastly is one that I am so excited to talk to you about. So David Sodergren reached out to me on Twitter and asked if I would like an e-arc of his new book The Har to review, and obviously I like tripped on myself to say yes and thank you about a bajillion times. And I'm just so grateful that I managed to get my hands on this book before it was released, and that I get to talk to you about it, because I can't stop smiling. Look at me, it's ridiculous, but like, I am obsessed with this book, you guys, like unhealthily obsessed. So thank you very much to David Sodergren for sending me a copy. I really appreciate it, it means a lot. And this book is everything that I didn't know I ever needed in a horror novel. It was perfection to me. Right, let's get into it. So The Har is the name, and I don't know if this is a Scottish term or if this is like UK wide, but for anybody who doesn't know, the Har is basically the mists or fog that comes in off the sea. So if you live somewhere that's coastal and it's starting to get a wee bit foggy, you'll hear people talking about the Har, and that's what it is. So this is what this story is based on. We have our main character Muriel, who is in her 80s and is a legend. She is just your typical Scottish granny. Like, this book could have been about my wee Granny Betty, and I say about 1,000 times on this channel that somebody should write a book about my Granny Betty. So like, thank you very much, David Sodergren. But aye, she is brilliant, she is funny, she is badass, she says exactly what's on her mind, and you know, she doesn't miss a beat to think about your feelings. She's phenomenal. So we have Muriel, and she lives in a wee town up in the north of Scotland that is being bought over by a rich developer who wants to make it into a golf course, and she's sort of being pressurised and pressurised and pressurised to sell. And one day the haar rolls in, and it's a wee bit different from the usual fog that comes in, and that's all I'm going to say plot wise. Leave it all ominous, teasing you so you want more. But it was just a absolutely amazing book. So Muriel, can I just tell you, has fast become one of my favouriteest horror characters. In fact, just hands down one of my favourite book characters ever. Like, she is amazing. She is so funny without trying to be, but God bless her, does she know how to pull at my heartstrings. Like, and that's my granny Oyer the back. I say on this channel often enough that I feel like older characters are massively underserved in literature. They are either there purely for comic effect or to be the senile sub-character to, you know, propel the main character's story. And I've actively been trying to seek out books that have older main characters because I thoroughly enjoy that. And there's just something about somebody who has all this life experience and all this wisdom that I just find to be far more appealing, and someone that I can connect to far more than your average 16-year-old female main character. And that's maybe because I'm getting a wee bit older too, right? But let's just leave that to the side. But yeah, I feel like in the comment section of my videos we have quite the chat about older people being underserved, and here is your opportunity to support an independent author who has taken note of that and written an absolutely phenomenal book with an older main character and an older cast. So like, that's just one of the many reasons you should check it out. And then on top of that, the setting is just brilliant. David Sodergren obviously writes rural Scottish settings fantastically. I spoke about that in my review of Maggie's Grave, and I don't think I spoke about it in my review of Maggie's Grave, but on reflection this is something that I have noticed. There's a parallel between Maggie's Grave and The Har, and they are set in two towns right beside each other, so I really liked all the wee Auchinmullen Easter eggs that were in The Har, which is where Maggie's Grave was set. I see you. I was getting that, David. I was geeking out. So they are set in rural Scotland. The wee towns are really close together, and David Sodergren really pulls on the themes and the fears of what it's like to live in rural Scotland. And in Maggie's Grave he did it from a younger person's perspective, you know, trying to get out, trying to get away, trying to make something of yourself, no being stuck in this town. And then in The Har he does it from an older person's perspective, worrying about, you know, the constant change and your local amenities being taken away from you, and, you know, already being isolated but then being further isolated when your friends and family are dying and your family moves away. And also about, you know, industry and people buying up land, specifically in rural Scotland, because that is something that happens quite a lot. People buy a lot of land up there to build holiday homes that they can then rent out, or luxury golf courses and tourist attractions and things like that. And I just think it's brilliant that we have a Scottish author who's really touching on those subjects and those themes and bringing them further out into the public eye. And I think that it's interesting, the parallels between Maggie's Grave and The Har, giving us it from that multi-generational perspective, which I thoroughly enjoyed. And it's just a complete and utter credit to his writing, honestly. This book is beautifully heartbreaking and horrific at the same time. It is hauntingly gorgeous. Like, I shit the romance in this book so hard. Like, David Sodergren has made me ship a romance far more than any romance author that is currently on my shelves, and it was beautifully written. And this book is going to stay with me for a long time. I finished it a couple of days ago and I can't stop thinking about it. Like, and I keep talking to Simon about it, and like, he has no interest. But there's just some scenes in here that will play rent free in my mind forever. I just thoroughly adored it. And Muriel is a great main character, but all the characters in this book are phenomenal. David Sodergren really has a way of making his characters stand out, and even if they're only on the pages for a couple of scenes, he has a way of just making you really care about them and wanting to know more about them, even if they aren't supposed to be the main focus of the story, which again is just an absolute credit to his writing. His character development for me is what sets him apart from a lot of other horror authors that I read. We all know, like, I love your Stephen Kings and I love your Grady Hendrix. We know this and I talk about them often enough, but David Sodergren is far superior in terms of his character development, in my humble opinion. Every time I pick up a David Sodergren book, from the first couple of pages in, I'm like, I love this character. And as much as I enjoy Grady Hendrix's writing, and as much as I enjoy his stories and I do enjoy his characters, I have never said that I have loved a Grady Hendrix character. I have said that I have loved nearly every single David Sodergren character, even the characters that are supposed to be the bad guys. He has a way of really making you feel for them and really loving them as well. So his character development is just chef's kiss good. I love it so much, and it always surprises me every single time I pick up his books just how quickly I get engrossed in the characters and in the world that he has created. They're just amazing, and as a character driven reader, that's something that I really look for, and it's something that I really enjoy. It is what has made me want to pick up more David Sodergren books, and there's still a couple on my shelves that I have been acquiring that I have yet to read, and I can't wait to get into them already. But his character development is next to none. He's just amazing at it. So if you are also a character driven reader, that's just another excuse to pick up this book. The book is gorgeous, and it's different from his other horror books, I would say. I think that if you aren't a humongous horror fan, this could be the one that gets you, because the relationships he built in this book are just phenomenal, and the scenes in here are so fucking gross, and I love them. And I love them just as much as the really lovely relationships. He strikes such a balance in this book of it being really thought-provoking and moving and romantic to being absolutely horrifically repulsive, but the horrifically repulsiveness of it in a way makes it even more beautiful. Like, and I can't believe what the amazing magic that he's been able to do in this book. I just thought it was amazing, and the balance he strikes between it being horrific and gross and beautifully romantic is just amazing to me. Like, it blows my mind. He's such an amazing writer, and like, let me just stake it now, he is my favourite horror writer. Like, topped Grady Hendrix, knocked him at the park. This book was just something else. Like, it's so amazing. Please check it out. It comes out on the 20th of May. You can pre-order it on your Kindle right now. If you have a Kindle, get it pre-ordered. Like, I'm telling you now, it's one of the best books that you're going to read. And if you don't have a Kindle and you would prefer it paperback, it will be released on the 20th of May. So, you know, on the 20th of May, get your reminder set to get on Amazon and to buy this book and to support David Sodergren, because it is phenomenal. If I had to like tagline this book and pull in some references as to what this book is like to try and make you buy it, I would sell it as The Golden Girls meets The Shape of Water with scenes from The Society, the old 80s horror film, that really gross one, that thrown in. It was perfect. It was everything I ever needed in a book. It was beautiful, and you know, it's going to stay with me for a long time, so go check it out. It will not be the last time I talk about this book on this channel, let me tell you. I will be buying a copy of this on the 20th of May. It's just amazing, seriously, you need to check it out. He is massively underrated, and I hype him up so much on this channel, and I will never stop hyping him up because he's just an amazing author, and I need more people to like read him and understand that and geek out with me about it. Thank you very much for watching another episode of my love affair with David Sodergren's writing. Hopefully you're enjoying everything that you are reading. at the moment, and I will catch you in the next one. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Bye!